So this is the third video on introductory dynamics and control focused on exam technique. What we're going to do is give a walkthrough of how you might tackle an exam style question. And the key mechanism we're going to suggest is you should always start by first summarising clearly what you already know. So forget the question and think, what do I already know, and write that down. Often, if you apply what you already know to the question, it will be obvious how you can then work through the solution and solve the problem. So, just to repeat again, our proposed exam technique is this: start by combining what you already know with the information provided in the question, and do this one bit at a time. Start with part 1 and only then look at part 2, because you'll find that once you have new information that you've created in part 1, you can use the same procedure for part 2 and so on. So first of all, what do I already know? Now this video is focused on first order modelling and dynamics, and so what we'll do is say, what would I expect you to know about first order modelling? I'd expect you to know that you have time constant form models of this type, where t is the time constant and c is the steady state gain. For a constant input, you should know that the response looks something like this. You should know that the decay rate depends on the time constant t. Here I've marked those with these crosses, so 1t, 2t and 3t. And you should know also that the steady state, system's frozen, the steady state depends upon this term here, cu. So that's basically, very, very briefly, what I would expect you to know about first order responses. Now there are some other slides here about second order responses, understanding behaviour and so forth, but they're not relevant to this talk, so I'm going to skip those for now. So here's the question. The angular velocity of a satellite dish is governed by a simple DC motor with the model given below, and you'll see it's got unknown parameters A, unknown parameters B, angular velocity omega and supplied voltage V. The operator enters a step change in voltage from 200 volts to 350 volts and finds the angular velocity behaves as in the figure below, which we'll give in a minute. Use this to estimate the parameters A and B. Now, my recommendation is don't even read the rest of the question. Just concentrate on part A, because sometimes part 2 and 3 don't make sense until you've solved part A. So focus on part A first. So here's the figure that we're going to use, but before we go and use the figure, we start with, what do I know about DC servo systems? So that's where you begin. You say, this question's about DC servo, so before I try and solve the question, what do I already know? Well, typically these can be modelled with equations like this. You'll see I've got a time constant t and a steady state gain v. So I've put t d omega dt plus omega equals kv. Omega the angular velocity, v the voltage, t the time constant, k the steady state gain. Now, what I'm going to do is ignore the model provided in the question, and instead I'm going to use this time constant form, because I understand the time constant form. I know what I'm looking for. So here's the figure. So what did the question give us? The question said that the voltage goes from 200 to 350, and this is the response that I get. I also know, so this is the information I bring, that a typical time constant form is t d omega dt plus omega equals kv. So what can I do with this? Well, first of all, the change in kv here must be the change in omega, because at steady state d omega dt is 0. The change in kv is 1.5, so you can see that here. The change in kv is 1.5. The change in v is 150. You can see that here, and therefore k must be 0.01. Next, we know that for first order systems we get a 63% movement in one time constant. So I'm working out what is a 63% movement, and you can see we've marked that there. So 63% movement is 0.945, so that gets you to this point here. We know that happens in one time constant, so the time constant must be 0.5. So what we've got is, here's our model. 0.5 d omega dt plus omega equals 0.1 v. Now, let's go back to the question. The question said, I've actually got this model here. A d omega dt plus b omega equals v. What are A and B? Now, what I can do is I can translate that into time constant form, because I understand time constant form, and I can see the time constant is A over B, and the steady state gain is 1 over B. So we've now determined that a suitable model, this is what we did on the previous slide, was 0.5 d omega dt plus omega equals 0.1 v, and clearly you can see the 0.5 is that term and the 0.1 is that term. So what we get is 0.5 is A over B, 0.01 is 1 over B, so B is 100 and A is 50. So now we can look at the second part of the question. Due to wear and tear, the system becomes subject to a 20% increase in the friction torque, which causes a drop in steady state gain. Find new model parameters. Well, this is perhaps easier than some students would think. This is the model that we had, A d omega dt plus b omega equals v, with these values for b and a, and it's expecting you now to be an engineer and say, what do I know as an engineer? Well, what I know is friction is this b omega term here. So if I'm increasing the friction by 20%, I must be increasing b to 120 from 100. And therefore, my new model is this: 50 d omega dt plus 120 omega equals v. Next part then. Sketch the expected behaviour for a voltage change from 300 volts to 180 volts, assuming the system was at steady state before the voltage change. So this is the model we've got, and notice this is the new model because we've got the increased friction. So how do we do sketching? Well, with sketching, first of all we say, where do we start? Well, we started at v equals 300. If you substitute v equals 300 into this equation, and obviously we're looking at steady state, so we ignore the d over dt, we end up with omega equals 2.5. Where do we finish? Well, if v is 180, we get omega equals 1.5. So we've got a start point and an end point. We also know the system moves from the start point to the end point, and it moves 63% of the way in one time constant. Now we've got here the time constant is 50. That hasn't changed. Sorry, let me tell a lie. That was an error. We'll go back to that. We know it's going to do that in one time constant. So the 63% movement is going to be minus 0.63, because the total movement is 1. 63% of minus 1 is minus 0.63. Now, the time constant is 50 over 120, which is 0.42. So we get that movement in 0.42 seconds. So now I can do my sketch. So I'll draw some axes. We'll start from 2.5 up here, and then we could have 2, and then we could have 1.5. You maybe would like some slightly more accurate graph paper, but the point here is just to indicate how you might do things, not to be really, really precise. And then I'm going to mark my time constants, so 1 time constant, 2 time constants, 3 time constants, and you could put underneath, if you like, clarify what that means. 1 time constant 0.42, 2 time constants 0.84, and so on. Now I know that the initial gradient gets me to the steady state in 1 time constant, so the initial gradient must be that. I know that I move minus 0.63 in 1 time constant, so basically I'm going to have a point about here. If you've got graph paper, you can make that a bit more precise. I also know that after 3 time constants I'm 5% away, and 5% of 1 is 0.05, so I can work out where that is. That's going to be 1.455 if you want to find it. So now all I do is create a plot that has the correct initial gradient and goes through these points. Next part then, explain why increasing friction reduces the time constant. Well, here's the model. A d omega dt plus b omega equals v. The time constant is clearly a over b, and what we've said is if you increase friction, you're increasing b. So if you increase b, then clearly a over b must be going down. And this is the end.